admit folks as they're coming in. Thank you so much. All right. All right. So thank you all for coming out tonight. As you can see by that beautiful slide, our guest tonight is Rebekah Jones. She is, oh, sorry. Are you hearing that?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. All right. Never mind. And just a reminder, this call is off the record, closed to the press, and is being recorded. So if you're uncomfortable with being recorded, I would recommend turning off your video. This, as I said, is being presented by the Indivisible Florida Network. And for folks that are not familiar with the Indivisible Florida Network, we are a group of 17 local indivisible and other resistant groups around the state. It's a collaboration of grassroots political activist organizations that advocate and defend democratic principles, values, and institutions by increasing voter engagement and participation in our democracy in order to bring about a more equal, just, and inclusive society. It should be noted, we are not affiliated at all with Indivisible National. While we do share many of their values, we organize as our own Indivisible Florida Network, and some groups may organize with Indivisible National on a individual basis. You can learn more about us by visiting Florida Indivisibles. We put on presentations like this every month. We do advocacy around the bills that are hitting us in Tallahassee. We do many things in the state. So definitely want to get plugged in with the Florida Indivisibles and look for a chapter near you. If you have any questions tonight, you notice that we turned off the chat. And the reason for that, if you've been with us before, our group normally is open with questions, but we just had too big of a crowd tonight to manage. So out of respect for our speaker, we had to turn that function off. But if you want to ask any questions, you're welcome to go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/Rebekah J, and you can input a question there and we'll field that question for you. And just a little bit about Rebekah. She's going to tell us her story, but you probably saw and just want to reiterate, she's a Florida scientist and whistleblower who became a national celebrity when she exposed the state of Florida for manipulating data during the COVID crisis. We're going to hear her story tonight, and I want to reiterate, sorry, my phone keeps going off. People don't read the instructions. Sign up for the Zoom link. I know I sent you a lot of reminders, I'm sorry. Something that I just want to reiterate is this is not a campaign stop for Rebekah. We're here tonight to talk about her story because one of the things that we find in a state like Florida is a lot of misinformation. And I think it's important as activists, as community members, to try and learn as much as you can and get information from many different sources before you judge. And I think that we have heard snippets of Rebekah. I'm sure all of you have seen her on TV or in the media. And we've also seen on social media quite a campaign to disparage her. And I think it's important that we hear from people what their story is. Obviously, she is a candidate. That isn't why we're here tonight. We're here to hear her side of what has happened and also to learn more about what we can do, because she brought this to our attention about COVID, the dashboard, the numbers in Florida. And as concerned community members, we need to learn what we can do to better help our community. And that includes paying attention to those dashboards and things like that. So we're really excited that she's been open to having this discussion with all of us. And without further ado, I'll kick it off to Rebekah. Thank you so much. Let me unmute you.
All right, I believe I'm unmuted. Thumbs up, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay, good. I'm sorry that I'm joining you from a place that's a little bit loud and a little hectic. If you can see behind me, right now I'm actually in Pointe-aux-Chenes, Louisiana, which was recently hit directly by Hurricane Ida. If you see a lot of people coming and going behind me and speaking French, those are members of the tribe. Today, I helped install a solar trailer here that's going to help power the inside of the tribal community center. I started working with this tribe in 2014 or 15, and actually did a lot of my PhD research on tribal issues related to the environment in this area. So it was important for me to come back and, do what I could. And Tesla wanted to make a show, so I made sure that they made a show here. That's why it's a little crazy and hectic. And yes, everything around me kind of looks in disarray, but I've never seen it this bad here. But at any rate, thank you guys for, having the chance to speak to your group. And it's interesting that we're talking about misinformation in the context of misinformation about me, because, my fight for the last year and 3 months, at least publicly, has been to fight misinformation about COVID-19. And it's somewhat strange to look back and think about, because until, the Nationalist Review put me in their sights, on behalf of DeSantis, there wasn't a whole lot of misinformation out there about me. It seems to have really come from that push from the National Review, which is, of course, they ran this smear piece with no sourcing and no evidence and no truth. I think the title actually said like the whistleblower who wasn't, and then a week later I got legal whistleblower protection. So, that worked out poorly for them. But I'm kind of a stranger in this political arena. I grew up not far from here and didn't grow up with much. And so what happened to me last year is, I think, at least for me, it was the nightmare of my life to be thrown into like this public arena, without any input, with no choice about it. Because before I ever spoke to a reporter, DeSantis was, defaming me in front of the Vice President of the United States. So that wasn't something I even had time to think about whether or not I wanted to do it. It was done to me. And it was terrifying. I did 4.5 minutes with Chris Cuomo 5 days after it happened, and then intended to just find a job, doing what I was doing before somewhere else, and even possibly in Tallahassee, and move on with life. And I got a lot of job offers for things that I didn't do. So when people call you a data scientist in the kind of data science realm, that means something very different from than being a scientist like I am, which is mostly earth science, but geography. So statistics and things like that, not so much like developing software. And I found it really hard to find a place that one was willing to draw the kind of attention, even though I'd only done one interview, that I brought with it. And as things started to get worse last summer for COVID in Florida, I felt like this dashboard that I built by myself for the state, that I ran by myself and up until I was fired, was being used as a propaganda tool. And I had some responsibility to that. So I answered it with a dashboard that I built that was everything that I wanted to build when I was at the state, but was not allowed to. So data about hospitals and long-term care facilities and prisons and eventually schools, all of the things that I thought were important that the state didn't want to highlight, I put in there. And that became my job. And the public supported that job. I did it not knowing if anybody would even care, honestly. I thought maybe, a couple hundred people would use it, and it would, people who really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of the data. And I remember the day after I launched it, I went to go update it, and it was crashed because my online account ran out of funds for the number of people that were trying to access it. Because the software that I use consumes credits. So, every time somebody hits it, it's a credit. And I ran out. And so I had to, go and buy all this new equipment and everything. Because when I got fired, the state took all my equipment and then did it again quite infamously 6 months later. And I just spent all day, every day doing that. When schools reopened, I partnered with Google and FinMango to track cases nationally in schools, but Florida was my personal project on top of that. Published some literature about that with some statisticians here in the state. When nobody wanted to talk about schools or how inconvenient it was that almost 125,000 students and staff in K through 12 schools in Florida last year were tested positive for COVID-19 that were reported as being connected to schools, which in itself is a very complicated and nuanced problem to try to track. And I actually had a really successful week the first week of December. I had published something in the US News and World Report about how schools needed to go remote for a little while because of the surge that we were seeing in cases. My Google and nonprofit partners co-authored that with me. The Sun Sentinel published several investigative pieces into DeSantis that were very damning, including muzzling their staff, being told not to talk about COVID leading up to the election, the very corrupt and awful things that led in part to what we saw in the winter. And so that was a very bad week for him, which was, kind of a good week for me. And then quite famously, Monday morning, I woke up to police banging on my door. And I went downstairs and one of them had a gun in my face and told me to open the door. They didn't have a warrant, but when somebody's got a gun in your face, you open the door. I put my hands up. I assumed, this was the price. My husband and I spoke about something like that happening when I decided to come forward. And whether or not losing my freedom, because we knew DeSantis would come after me eventually, was worth what I was trying to do. And I decided for myself that it was. And my husband agreed. And so I was ready to go that morning. I figured whatever it is they're here for, just go. And then they came in my house. And then after I said that my husband and 2 children were upstairs, only after then did one of the cops pull out his gun and pointed up the stairs at my kids. I have video footage of a guy carrying an AR-15, almost the height of my child, pushing my child around in the doorway, who was 11 at the time. And I think I had tried to stay as neutral as reasonable for any person, in this area of work up until that point. It was hard not to have feelings about DeSantis considering he personally attacked me, but it was more about the Department of Health than it was him for me, because they were the ones who knew that what they were doing was wrong and were passing it off that way anyways. They didn't have to do that. And they chose to, and as Department of Health employees should have known and done better. DeSantis is a politician, so he does what you would expect most politicians to do, which is to serve themselves. But the Department of Health had a higher responsibility, I thought, than he did. But after that, after finding out that he knew they were coming to my house, because I was tipped off the night before, that something was going to happen, but I didn't think it would literally be like 8 hours later. And that he ordered the raid, had the judge that was his most recent appointee less than a month earlier, who does family court in another part of the state, sign off on the warrant that arrived 3 hours after they showed up to my door. It became political because I saw somebody who had this vast amount of power and was wielding it to try to crush critics. And I know that was wrong. And my instinct for when things were wrong has always been to say something about it. My mom used to say that, like, when I was a kid, my mouth was either going to land me in jail or dead. It could very well end up with me both, as I have been jailed because of my mouth. And hopefully my mouth won't get me dead too, but I don't believe in seeing something happen and not speaking. And again, I'm sorry if it's very loud. It's a community center. It's the only place I can get connected right now, given the circumstances. But even after the raid, I immediately fled the state in 2 weeks. And for my family, I felt like the risk that I was taking this whole time was my risk. It was a risk I was subjected to, that I agreed to take, not my kids. Kids are supposed to be off limits. I mean, you don't point guns at children. Even criminals don't have their guns like that pointed at their children and held hostage for 3 hours at gunpoint in their living room. You know, forced to unlock their Leon County school computer passwords so they can get in and see everything my son was doing on his school computer at gunpoint. And so I had to move for my family. And my husband actually works for the Department of Corrections. He never stopped for the Florida Department of Corrections. He is a biostatistician who has been instrumental in helping me navigate all of this, making sure that I wasn't crazy. When I reran the numbers 8 times and they all said the same thing, I said, can you run this too? Because if this is right and this is what they're planning on doing, they're going to get a lot of people killed. And he's the most brilliant statistician that I know. And he came to worse conclusions than I did. Different models, but that's difference. And they deserve to be safe. And we were planning on coming back. That's why he never left his job, but thought that that wouldn't be able to happen until DeSantis was gone. And then completely unexpected, the state granted me whistleblower status and sent me a letter saying that based on what they have, they believe I was telling the truth and that I should have been protected for the last year. It came a year after everything happened. After I first asked my boss, how do I file a whistleblower complaint? A year later, they said, whoops, you should have been protected this whole time. But it granted me protections that enabled me to move back and feel safe. I mean, I'm not ever, I think, going to be totally safe because I'm a risk. Obviously now to Gaetz, but to DeSantis as well. My existence and my resilience is a threat to his presidential hopes. So I'll never really be safe. When I got COVID in January and tested positive in a Florida jail. And after that, I stepped away for a little bit, being both sick and tired and not wanting to put my family through anything, thinking that they would leave me alone if I stepped back. And then that's when the smear campaign really started to gear up. And they don't cite any sources. And, they do the some say thing that is like journalism no 101. Or base an article on one anonymous source who may or may have not known me or met me at some point. But it's so transparent that you would think people would read it and just be like, God, that's awful journalism and a terrible smear job. Especially when everything I said, was proven over and over and over again. But that's not the world we live in anymore, where people see reasonable facts and can see through the muck. Because if we were, this community wouldn't be destroyed. COVID wouldn't be ravaging Florida worse than it ever has before. A handful of states, Florida, Missouri, Arkansas, parts of Texas and Louisiana, basically caused a relapse of COVID across the entire country because of this agenda. And it's really sucks to be sitting here saying, I told you, when the cost of being right is so damn high, when it didn't have to happen. And of course, everybody's wise to DeSantis being evil and not caring. But I don't know what they thought he was when he ordered state police to raid a scientist and a critic's house for being publicly opposing him, to point guns at my children, because that's what they were there to do. What type of man did they think he was when he did that? A good one? Somebody who weighed human life over his pursuit of power? because clearly that's all he cares about. And I can't stand for that. People like that, men like that, rarely ever pay for the things that they do. And the only way that any of this, to hold him accountable is to vote him out. And so I've always wanted to live in Pensacola. I used to always say, sorry, that's Jake Billiot, and he's very, very loud and he speaks French only. Bye, Williams, nice to meet you. This is a solar guy from Tesla. I've always wanted to live in Pensacola. I've been living in Florida longer than anywhere else. I'm actually a third generation Floridian. My dad went to Boca High, over on your guys' half of the state. And my grandfather moved recently actually from Melbourne to Palm Bay. He's lived there his whole entire life as well. And, my dad is very much a Florida man, and so is my grandfather. And I guess I'm Florida woman now, but maybe we can make that symbolize something good. Florida man is not always a good perception, but maybe Florida woman can be something good, can be a force for good. Florida woman is a woman who is not afraid of Florida man.
Hell yeah.
And how we need to get that, going. Florida woman sees bullshit and calls it bullshit. Florida woman says that I don't care what Florida man says, no matter if he's governor or senator or anything else. I'm going to say what's right and do what's right. No matter, I get right there. We need Florida woman to be strong, I think, and independent. And when I got whistleblower protection and I felt safe coming back, I thought about possibly coming to Tallahassee. But when I visited after everything happened, I think there was too much hurt there. The feeling that I had for weeks before we moved after the raid of turning down my street and there being police in my house. One of the cops actually, as he was coming to my house, said, we don't want any accidents. There was a 2.5-year-old baby in that house who likes to run and jump on everything. If she had poked her head out from behind the stairs, they would have shot her. And the fear that I would come back to something like that, it was too much to be in Tallahassee. And my family all lives close by. My sister's 2 hours, not even from Pensacola. And honestly, it's so beautiful and I love it. And a lot of people think it's too conservative, but I grew up in the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You ain't gonna top more conservative than that. And we don't even have pretty water. So this is, a step up for me.
Yeah.
And seeing
handicapped son is supposed to have a BiPAP machine on at night, and I got about a
we have I think a spare battery pack that they brought over that you can take with you at home to charge at night. I think they're charging right now. What is it? What type of device is it?
It's a BiPAP machine that you plug it in and it pushes air through.
Batteries?
It pushes air through. I don't think.
So I'm just going to mute Rebekah for a minute. She's helping somebody. So again, just want to put up on the screen for folks. I'm going to share this. If you do have questions for Rebekah, I'm sorry, we did disable chat because we had so many people sign up. It was just a lot. So I am going to share the screen really quick. If you want to send us a message through the link there, https://bit.ly.RebekahJ. You're welcome to send us a question and we'll make sure that we ask our guests tonight. So just wanted to share that with you all. And sorry about that, Rebekah. She's working. She's multitasking. Hang on a second.
I just wanted to share while you can hear, but you can't speak. I hear your pain, but I wanted to thank you because you are I'm going to cry because I could hear the pain in your voice over your children. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a crier. But my daughter's immune suppressed, and you were the reason I watched your dashboard every day.
Yeah.
And I trusted you. And you're the reason I kept her home. And Sorry, I didn't mean to take it. I just wanted to say thank you because I know you've dealt with a lot, but I want you to know that I'm not the only one that you've affected in such a life-saving way.
Anna's my awesome co-leader. For folks who don't know, her and I rolled up at Marco Rubio's office again this morning and called out his bullshit. That's a whole nother story. So let's get back to Rebekah, but definitely want to just, if you've got questions, you've got that link there. And I'm sure Anna, I, and others will certainly have questions. And go ahead and continue, Rebekah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Son's on a BPAP, so we were trying to make sure that he has enough power to keep it going overnight. Yeah, it's, as somebody who's quantitative, who spends my life looking at statistics.
Thank you.
It's been killing me this whole time to not have some measure of what difference, if any, I've made. Like the price that my family's paid, was it worth it? And yeah, it's as a mother, as a really hard thing to think was putting my family in danger. Did it make a difference?
So I want to,
and hearing that it has,
so I want to ask that question because I think this is a good place to interject a couple of questions for you in hearing your story is, and I think Anna comes in it as a place, and I know as a mother, and I see all the good names on here as activists. We've made a sacrifice for Florida in the name of democracy, in the name of voting rights, and in the name of racial justice. We've all made deep sacrifices because we see the flaws of our leaders, like Ron DeSantis, like Matt Gaetz. And I want to ask you, just first question I have is going back to that original moment when you decided, I need to talk about this. Do you now look back at what has happened and second guess? Yeah. Have you come to a place where you've said, I don't know if I should have done it? I'm just curious what your mindset is, because I know as an activist, I look back and go, I could have given more time to my daughter. I could have given more time to my family. I do worry sometimes that we've given up a lot, but I also recognize there is no future for her if I don't fight for it. So I'm curious what your thoughts are as a mom. Going back to that moment, would you repeat what you've done, or would you just let us know what your thoughts are on that?
There's two things I would have done much differently, knowing what I know now. The first is I would have gone public sooner. I would have done it as soon as I knew what they were doing, and I didn't. I waited 2 weeks. Even after everything happened, I didn't want to be a public person. I waited 5 days to say anything publicly. That's 3 weeks. We were already pushed into phase 2 before I came forward with information that phase 1 we were not ready for it. So knowing what I know now, I would have gone straight to the press as soon as I knew what happened or was going to happen. Because I feel like once it started happening, it was very hard to undo it. But if maybe everyone knew before the decision was made that it was not the right decision, could have delayed it at least. And the second thing is I would have sent my family away. I would have stayed and fought, and I would have sent them somewhere where they could have been safe. Stay with family in New York or Mississippi, anywhere else. Because like I said, when my husband talked and I talked about it, I said, he's going to come for me. Look at what he just did in front of the vice president. He didn't even know who I was. Like we had spoken one time ever. And that is anger that has no rational basis whatsoever. And I think most people have noticed the way that he gets when people bring me up is not normal. It is hatred. It is anger. And I don't get it. But that was, like I said, that was my risk to take. And I should have sent my family away. I should have sent them somewhere that if they came for me, they couldn't hurt them.
And I feel
And that-
I feel your pain as a mom, but I got to tell you that, you know, we try and how do I say this? We take on sometimes that we need to protect them from everything. And what I've learned is my child is growing up a warrior because she's in this fight. And so as much as I tried to kind of push her away and not understand what this is, listen, our children will be fighting this. There's no way that we can take down this, even if we've removed DeSantis and Rubio and Scott and all this. This is a generation fight. Racism, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, misogyny, bigotry. This is a fight for our lives, and our children are going to inherit this. So I know, I hear the pain that you're saying. I get that, but just recognize that, you know, our children are stronger than we think they are. And, you know, but it is instinctive in us. I do have a question here. A couple of things. I see, Anna, did you have a question? Because no, okay. There's a question here that says, can you talk about the DeSantis mask mandate and his promotion of Regeneron? Is he trying to hurt Biden by allowing COVID spread? I mean, what are your thoughts on his mindset in the fact that we have thousands of people that, you know, science tells us, quite frankly, should not have died in this state? So I'd just be curious. I think that's a great question somebody submitted.
So I don't like to put words in other people's mouths or assume that I understand somebody's intentions. I mean, the guy's not rational. He has his sights set on something, and anything that's in the way has to be destroyed. So I can't tell. I won't say what I think he's thinking. I do know that we were one of only a handful of states in the entire country that never passed a mask mandate. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, all of them passed mask mandates, but not Florida. His own administration drafted a public letter, just supportive of people wearing masks, and he refused to sign it.
I got some
And
down the street that they call that Kirsty burn a bicycle. So a lot of
oh, okay. Sorry. People coming.
It's okay, Rebecca. We as indivisibles and resistance, we roll with the punches. We get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a person to stay in the safety and comfortability of my living room, and people that I care about and communities I care about are dealing with this. So, but the anti-mask wearing, it was so heavily politicized, and my assumption from the way that he behaves, which is of course only grounded in those observations and not at all what he actually thinks, is that he was looking probably pretty early on to take up the Trump mantle. And that was something that was very early on considered a hot button issue and controversial. And the CDC did not help it. I'm one of those people who would say we went from no mask to one mask to two masks to no, then this complicated chart. And then, you know, now we're doing it again. And now it's only one though. And that doesn't help. The public health messaging was flawed. And that weakness was capitalized on by extremists. With Regeneron, I think that's probably an easier thing to understand, considering that one of the major investors of the drug is one of DeSantis's top financiers, one of his top donors. If people are all vaccinated, then they're not getting sick. And if they're not getting sick, they don't need Regeneron. It's evil. It's corrupt, but it's simple. As far as his chess match with Biden, who the hell knows? Who knows? We know what he wants. He doesn't care about being governor of Florida. He wants to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
And the people that he's surrounded himself with are neo-Nazis who have worked for actual authoritarian governments. They're not the type of people who are interested in public good. They're interested in power. So I would think that any movie he's making has that end goal in sight. But again, I don't know him. I can't explain his psyche. I have no idea why he hates me so much. I think I was an annoyance at first because he tried to, take the hammer and just smash me down. And I was like whack-a-mole and it didn't work. And almost every single time he came after me, it blew up in his face. Having my camera on when they raided my house, because if I didn't, and I had, gone to the press and said they pointed an AR-15 at my child, they could be like, oh, she's crazy. She's making that up. But I had my camera.
I love this notion of Florida woman, because the reality is we've seen time and time again Ron DeSantis run from women reporters. He gets intimidated. And so I do believe that he has a power issue when it comes to strong, powerful women that challenge him. And we've seen this like with Rubio. We've seen this time and time again. They run because it's not easy. In fact, we were there today demanding that they give us a town hall. Like, how dare you call yourself a representative when you're unwilling to speak to the people of Florida? That's just shameful. A question came up. Somebody said a left-leaning YouTuber skeptic, and I know just by us promoting this event, we had a lot of crazy conspiracies. Of course, everybody wanted to bring out like all your past history. And let's be clear, nobody's perfect. And listen, it's Florida. We have to look for candidates, and I'm not making any endorsements, but come with facts and figures. You throwing out, well, this and that, and you have no supporting facts, and you're just going by hearsay, and you're not doing your due diligence, hurts Florida, number one. Number two, we saw a lot of pushback, even within our own circle of folks. They're like, well, I said, well, first of all, show us the information that you have that is purporting that we can't at least hear her story, and tell us, where did we ever decide that we're not open in this democracy of hearing all sides of an issue? Number one. And we can have an event that is not a candidate event. And you can certainly at the end, if folks are still on, tell folks how to find out more about you and your candidacy. But this isn't what this event was about. And the other thing is we had messages from people asking for your viewpoints on issues. And I said to them, listen, this is not a candidate issue. We're here to give her story a place where she can share it. We have a huge following on social media. We know a lot of people around the state. We believe that there should be always, in a democracy, an opportunity to hear everybody's side. And then we, the people, need to make an informed decision, learn the facts, investigate everything, and believe that. And the last thing I will say is, obviously, nobody's perfect. Like, we're moms, like, life happens, like, you roll with it. And that's why, for all of you who came on tonight, we started a little late. I'm sorry. It happens. We had a technical glitch, not a big deal, but we roll with it. And thank you all for being patient tonight. So the question is, I'm sorry, we just want to get to the question. Somebody said a left-leaning YouTuber, skeptic and critic, Rebekah Watson, aka Skepchick, I think, put out a video that presented you, Rebekah, in a poor light. She's not part of the right. Have you seen it? And are you going to respond to it? She's just wondering if you've seen, like, how do you respond to the critics, or do you even?
I've never heard of this person, but I have noticed that even some progressives have been kind of buying into what, of all places, the National Review has been writing, which is strange to me.
Yeah.
Because all of this was, vetted way back when everything first started, and has been over and over and over again. I mean, the Miami Herald published a huge expose in early June of this year that proved that everything that I said about what happened at DOH was true. And I was not the only source for it, which is really important, just to have more than one source. I think there's one line of attack from the right that really stings as a woman. I was in a very abusive relationship when I was separated from my husband back in college. 5 years ago. And I had been with my husband since I was 19 years old. And we separated, and I dated a classmate for a couple of months. It ended very badly. it was very toxic. And in an effort to kind of heal from it, I wrote a story for a domestic abuse survivors blog about gaslighting and, you know, how women who are like me and would look at that situation from any other viewpoint and tell that woman to get out. Like, what are you doing? This is not normal. It is not normal for every time you try to end a relationship for the guy to call you at 2:00 in the morning and say he's in the ER throwing up blood and that he's going to die because you're going to break up with him. You know, that's not okay. That is not a healthy situation. And so I wrote about it for an abuse survivors blog, and I named him in it by name. And he claimed that by putting his name to all of the things that he did, that was cyber harassment. And that's how you end up with that, which is disgusting. It implies that women who come out of these relationships should never talk about it. They should never say the name of the person who did it to them, you know, that it should be some dirty secret. And that's the problem, is that we don't share these things, because the type of abuse I went through wasn't just, you know, he punched me in the face, you know, every time I didn't have dinner ready. It wasn't that explicit. It was subtle and nuanced and intimate violence. And I felt like that story needed to be told. And, you know, he did what all abusers do, and he tried to take the power back and claim it was cyber harassment. And nothing ever went anywhere with it. Of course, because, you know, you want to put this guy on the stand who actually told police that he lied to me and tried to make me feel like he loved me because he wanted me to do what he wanted in a statement to police. But nobody, you know, on the right likes to dig up that statement. But it's fine. You know, if you think that victims of abuse should never speak out about it, then I don't think you're a progressive. If you don't think that they should name their abusers and take back their power, then I don't think you're a progressive. And if you think that repeating alt-right talking points that are put out there by a man who is responsible for 90% of the deaths in Florida, then I don't think you're a progressive either.
Yeah, I think I'm going to raise my hand here and tell you there's a lot of people that try and define what a progressive is, and they're misinformed. And the only thing I'm going to say to you, to anybody, is progress requires moving forward. And if we're constantly in a place where we're doing the same thing that we've always done, which is misogyny and bigotry and all this, that is not progress. So I hear you on that. There's been a lot of, I've looked through the questions, more support than questions. Somebody said, thank you so much. I feel more secure. I trust your work. Thank you for all you've risked, all you've done. The truth is critical in this disease. I desperately wish we had a transparent and honest government that cares about people and understands the need to follow the science of public health, promoting mass vaccines, testing, and especially contact tracing. The truth is critical in this disease. Somebody else asked, how can my help you win? And so I think that we're coming up on 7:54. I do want to just spend a little bit of time in looking at Florida. You know, we've heard your story of like how you were thrown into this national spotlight kind of against your will, and you wish you'd kind of done it a little bit earlier. But in looking at Florida now, the challenge of Florida and your choice to make even more of a difference by stepping into a public arena, where do you see that you can help, aside from the dashboard, which we're all using? We love it. It's been helpful. Where do you see that you can help us? And more importantly, aside from you running, what do you recommend for us as activists? Because you have on here amazing leaders from around the state that have their own groups, have a platform, are very engaged in trying to move that progress. These are the people that are pushing for actual progress. So what would you say to us as boots on the ground? Where do you see like helping Florida, and what can we do in that push?
So one of the good things that I think my campaign is going to do is going to give a lot of attention to a place that most people don't think is worth bothering. because it's too conservative, you know, and there were a lot of progressives in this area of Florida that feel ignored by the state party or disregarded by the state party because they don't bother coming here. Well, I'm here. You know, I live here now. I've been fighting for Florida this entire time. And everybody needs to show that we can put in as much work as we're like physically and mentally capable of and do something good. But it takes a lot of work. I mean, I'm running around clearly everywhere, but trying to build this from, you know, the ground up. I think as far as party organizers go, please talk to each other, organize with each other. I reached out to like every single party in my district, all 5 counties, and was like, can we get like a group chat going, you know, where we can like share each other's events so that we can, you know, all bring more attention to it and, you know, help each other out, know where we are, support up and down the ballot. And I got like 3 replies and I sent it to like 50 party organizers. And, you know, make sure that the people that you bring on your team, and this is a lesson I learned, probably my first big lesson in politics, are stable and reliable and trustworthy. Because I jumped in with someone who I should have vetted better, who is now trying to sabotage my campaign because I had to fire her. And for making inappropriate comments to my husband, sexual comments, and for smoking pot in my car. So, you know, it's really difficult to gauge, I think, a lot of the time who is trustworthy and who isn't. And I made a mistake. I need campaign staff around me who know the groundwork and also see the big picture. That's what I need from the state party and from progressives, because I'm not going to be a Dixiecrat. I don't plan on running a campaign as a Dixiecrat. And if that was who I was, I wouldn't be where I'm sitting right now.
Where can folks learn more about your platform and learn more about those issues? And again, this is not a campaign stump. We wanted to hear her story, what happened in Florida. So this is just, if you want more information, you can learn more. And one thing I'm going to say about the party and all of that, that's why Indivisibles came about. That's why, if you know our group, Round for Progress or Florida Indivisibles mini groups, we saw the holes that were happening in the state party of not doing the work. There's a lot of work in building relationships. There's a lot of work in connecting with people. You know, our group, a lot of times people go, oh, you're the protest group. Well, you know what? We've made thousands of calls and door knocked and almost 100,000 postcards. Yeah, and we push for progress. So, you know, call us what you will, but we get stuff done, and I'm proud of that. Anna's smiling like, yeah, we do. We get the work done. I think that's the thing, important.
Though, you know, like I've noticed in politics that you really, I don't know if it's too much to ask this. You have to put aside the pettiness, the like inner power struggles that are going on with this person likes this person, but not that person. And if you burn this person, you're going to lose all these people. Yeah. Just grow up.
Yeah.
Grow up. Do you want to win this? Yeah. Do you want to flip this state? Then we have to work together. Being divided, that's why the Republicans win. Because they fall in line.
Absolutely.
And it's not about following in line with us. It's about saying we have a common goal here.
Yeah.
If you're not helping it out of the way.
Absolutely. There's a lot in this state where it's like, you got to kiss my ring first. And you don't know this, and people have been on our meetings, we tell this a lot. I went once to a Broward Democratic meeting. This could have been anywhere in the state. I'm putting a flyer on the chairs back when we met pre-COVID. And somebody in the management team came up to me and said, who gave you permission to do that? And I said, I did. Like, I don't need your permission to do what I want.
Yeah. Just squabbles, and maybe that's politics as usual, but maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that's why normal people don't like to get involved. It's because you have to know this like ridiculous roadmap of who and when and why and not this but that, and just
Anna, I'm going to bring you in here because Anna said once, I'm just going to bring her in before we close out with the final question. Anna, remember you said once that you felt like you didn't know the right people. I remember you saying like, you came in and you're like, I don't know, like they gave me this impression of I don't know the right people.
Gatekeeping. It's gatekeeping,
Well,
and it's wrong.
I'm always, not so much anymore, but especially when I first was going to meetings, was asked, who do you know? That was not even who are you or why are you here? Why are you here? I think it's a very important question, but who do you know? And I'd always answer my Girl Scout leader. So, who do I know? I know my Girl Scout troop leader, and yeah, that's it. But I'm like sitting here texting some people on the call. So I'm like, I love her because you're calling out the bullshit. Excuse me.
And we're really good at that. So thank you. And not just Anna, but all of our group leaders around the state. So I'm looking at the time, it's 8:01. I want to be respectful of folks' time.
I'm using the local courier newspaper reporters Wi-Fi.
Thank you so much for like rolling with this. So in closing, I want to know, like and I know that the death rate has been really high. I know that we're expected to go higher. What are your thoughts on mitigation? Because a lot of folks here came because they trust you as a source. You put yourself out there, your family out there to try and get information like this isn't feeling right. What are your thoughts on mitigation over the next few months?
I mean, a lot of it is the stuff we already know. Get vaccinated, wear a mask, avoid groups indoors. This is a more contagious, more transmissible virus, especially among children. And no one likes to hear this. It is difficult because especially now that we don't have, because of DeSantis, the additional unemployment from the federal government for COVID, schools should not be in person right now, not in Florida. It sucks. I know everybody wants a break. I have 2 school-age children. I know that, all day, every day for a year makes them go crazy inside. And I want them to be able to learn and to see their friends. But if you think about for 1 second what one death of a child in a school community, because it really is a community, or one teacher or one staff member does, it devastates that whole community.
Is there a positivity rate that you would feel safer that we were kind of at?
The CDC original positivity rate for reopening schools is less than 5%.
Yeah, that's what our group, and just for folks that know, you can learn more about our group, help send out over 125,000 letters to local school boards across Florida, advocating that they create that line of 5% or less and keep the mask on. So I'm really proud of that. And the other thing that we were told by medical professionals is keep the mask on kids if the hospital bed rate was above 85%, because at that point they're in a crisis mode and we need to stay away from that. So I'm glad to hear that you confirmed that. Thank you so much for your time. Where can folks learn more about you, your campaign, if they want more information?
So you can go to RebekahJonesCampaign.com. You'd be surprised, but Jones for Congress, apparently, having like the most common last name in America, has been used in every possible combination. So it's RebekahJonesCampaign.com.
Okay.
Also, since I am here, if you are willing and able, both the Pointe-au-Chien Indian tribe and the Ile de Jean Charles band of Biloxi Chitimacha Indians are accepting donations to help them acquire trailers for the people who lost their homes. Only 8 of the 40 families, the 40 homes that are on this bayou are left.
Wow.
7 plus 1 person who says he can fix his house, but we're not so sure. So
wow.
20% are left.
So do me a favor, Rebekah, if you can share the link to that, we'll certainly share that with all of you in the follow-up. And even if it's $5, $10, you know what? Our brothers and sisters in that survived the hurricane, and we're a hurricane state, so we've all been through it. We know what it takes. So
it will be us.
Absolutely.
When Michael hit, these people came over and helped us clean up. I worked that storm. I was with the state for that storm. And Louisiana sent lots of resources. And the place where I'm at right now, the county hasn't even been here. The roads are only clear because the people here are cleaning it up themselves.
Wow.
This is, we call it like the last stretch of land on earth in Louisiana. These people aren't getting the help they need from the government, and they never have. And that's
So this
unfortunate.
is a call to indivisibles out there. You get that email tomorrow, drop in a donation and stay in touch with us, Rebekah, and let us know how we can help and uplift. I think the one thing that you'll learn about this organization across the state is we resist in many ways, but we're a very philanthropic organization. I know our group has done several campaigns to help. So definitely share the information with us. Thank you all for coming out tonight. And thank you, Rebekah, for taking the time out of a really hectic day. Obviously, you're in the middle of hurricane cleanup in another state to share your story. And to everybody that came out tonight, thank you so much. I know there was a lot of reminders, but we still have people that were calling and messaging me like, how do I get a link? I'm like, you got to do the link. But it helps. And sorry, we had to turn off chat. We just had too many folks, which goes to the point that people want good information. They want to learn the other side of the story. They want to hear more. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Really appreciate everybody. And thank you all for the help. And you got a lot of hearts there. Let's give Rebekah a whole bunch of hearts to close her out as a farewell. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
night,
guys
everybody.
for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you. And
Thank you
sorry
so
for the
much.
circumstances, but
It's all right.
It's
Thank
life.
you, Rebekah.
all
Thank
right,
you
bye.
so much. Bye. All right. Good night, everybody.